Rev up your engines!
Jonathan Summers says, sorry, Scotty, my wife is not being nice. She recognized your voice. I watch all your videos, but she doesn't care for it. I really appreciate your curt, direct, honest speak from a Houstonian. I lived in Houston for 43 years. Now I'm all over the place. Tennessee, Rhode Island, traveling around. A lot of people don't appreciate honesty. Thanks, That's what I'm here for, to help people out. The people that don't, I really don't care. If they're involved in ripping people off, and that's their business, the way the cookie crumbles. I had a customer once. He got himself a new girlfriend, and I said, show me a picture. I said, oh, you got a gold digger there. He says, oh, no. I said, how old is she? She's 25. I said, and you're 55. She's a gold digger. You're a millionaire. Ran oil companies. He says, no. I said, well, what does she do for a living? He says, well, she works in an advertising firm. People will do anything in an advertising firm. They'll say anything as long as they get paid by the company that's paying them money. Or they'll get other people to say anything as long as they're making money on the deal. So people don't like me. I don't care. I'm out here to have fun and help people out. And if they don't like that, well, that's what I say. Annie Tremaine said, should I get a 4 or 6-cylinder engine? Well, it's up to you. You're going to get better gas mileage with a 4-cylinder, but you're going to have more power with a V6. Now, if you're going to tow boats and stuff like that, big campers, the ones that weigh many thousand pounds, get the V6. But if you're just driving around, you want to get decent gas mileage, the 4 is actually, if you do normal driving, lasts longer. There's half the parts instead of V6, 3 on each side. There's just 4 in a row, so there's less moving parts. They're easier to work on. They cost less, too, generally. And check out your insurance rates. Generally, the V6 engines are more powerful, so you pay a higher insurance premium than you do with a 4-cylinder. So take that all into consideration. How you drive, are you towing stuff, how much money do you want to spend? Because, the other day, a guy brought me a brand new Toyota Corolla hatchback. Little Toyota Corolla. That thing had 200-something horsepower. It was a screamer, but it got 40 miles a gallon on the highway. So why would you need more than that? Ikeda Kazuto says, Scotty, my Mercedes-Benz is ranked 3rd most reliable car in Australia. It's apparently more reliable than Toyota. How's this possible? Should I buy a Merc? Well, one, I am assuming your Mercedes are the ones made in Germany. The ones made in Germany are much better than the ones made in the United States. I made that video a few weeks ago. The guy had the 150,000 plus SUV Mercedes that was made in Alabama, and it was junk. It wasn't welded together right. The speakers broke, the mirror whistled for all that money, and it was less than a year old. Now, I'm assuming you're getting yours from Germany. But also, don't believe who's rating things. The guys that work for magazines and even online stuff, a lot of them just get paid straight by companies to say good things about their company. They have hundreds of millions of dollars a year they spend on advertising, and they have no qualms about paying people off. So a lot of these things, they'll tell you they're the best car. There was some rating in the United States where they rated Chryslers as the best cars, the highest rated cars. Total nonsense. And this was recently, too. Last few years. So you can't believe what a lot of these guys say. They're taking payola from companies. And, oh, that's a great car. Yeah, blah, blah. Yeah, that's a bunch of nonsense. So a lot of that stuff you take with a grain of salt. But if they are made in Germany, they will be better than the ones made here in Alabama and other places of the world. It's a big difference. You want a German car, get one made in Germany. Jose Fernandez says, I'm thinking of buying an 87 Grand National. Any advice? Well, they're becoming more and more collector's items. It's an old car. It's an 87. So what you want to do is pay a mechanic to put it up on his lift. Crawl under it and check everything with a hammer in your hands. If it's rusted out, walk away. It's worth nothing. If the body rusts, they're worth nothing. But if it's clean and it's not rusted, they're becoming more and more collector's items. Depending on what you're paying, you're going to get different things. Let's say it's in excellent shape and the engine's been rebuilt and you're going to pay more. Let's say it barely runs at all. You're going to pay a lot less. You got to decide, what do you want to buy? How much do you want to pay? But realize, rather collectible, and you might have to overpay. You might wait. If you can find one with a price, you never know. Somebody wants to sell something that needs money. You never know what kind of a position they're in, right? So you might get a good deal. But with all these prices up high, don't overpay. I'd wait. If the guy wants too much money, I'd wait. Because a car like that, they're becoming collectible. But on the other hand, there's only a certain amount of people that actually want to buy them. So it's not like he could just sell it in 2 seconds. See if it's too much money and see what shape it's in, and then go from there. Zuriel says, Scotty, how complicated would it be to rebuild a 2000 Ford 4.6 in my backyard, first time doing a rebuild, just starting with engines? Well, what the heck, it's a 2000. It's a lot simpler than the newer ones. It would be a good engine to learn on. Just take your time. Don't cut corners. You get tired, stop doing it. Don't drink beer while you're doing it. I had a guy back in Houston that he had 4 beers and he worked on his Jeep, and then he double gasketed the oil filter, so there were 2 gaskets, and then all the oil went on the highway and his engine blew up and he needed to get a new engine. If he hadn't been drinking that beer, he wouldn't have done it. Take your time. Be sober while you're working on your engine. Yeah, that's a good engine to begin with. You know, it's a basic engine. Yeah, as long as you got space and your wife isn't going to yell at you that you're taking up the backyard, taking things apart in it. Jacob Adrian says, do you have to replace '07 Toyota Matrix transmission filter? What repairs have you done? Okay. They just have a screen. You don't have to bother. You just drain the fluid and put more fluid in. That's all. The filter is just a screen. If you're a real fanatic, you take it off. You could clean it with, air spray cleaner. You'll see there's nothing in it. It's just a screen, The Matrix itself, just, brake jobs. Everything else is still pretty much original. Alternator, air conditioner, electric radiator, fan, the radiator itself. I had to buy a set of tires, of course. They wear out over time. And I've replaced various cosmetic things. I didn't like that ugly grill, so I put a chrome one that looks better. And I hated the original headlights, so I put those smoky glass ones, and I hated the back tail lights, so I put smoky ones on there, and they bolt in and out. There's such an aftermarket for them, but I didn't have to do anything real serious. They're really well made. They're just Toyota Corollas. Originally, they were called Toyota Corolla Matrixes, and then they called them Matrixes. And the new Toyota Corolla hatchback, as far as I'm concerned, it's really a Toyota Matrix, but they don't want to call it that. They don't have another one where, well, Toyota, we stopped making Matrixes, so we're going to make them again, so they didn't call them Toyota Matrixes. They called them Toyota Corolla hatchbacks, but they're really Matrixes as far as I'm concerned. East Coast Car Style says I got a 2010 Santa Fe, 190,000 miles. It runs great, but the lights dim up and down. And I don't think it's the alternator. First, have the battery and alternator load tested anyway. It's an easy test that we mechanics can do in 4 minutes. Often it is. Now, if the battery's good and the alternator's good, then you got to test the wiring. If your lights are the only thing that are dimming, you want to check the power wires going to the lights. But more importantly, you need to check the ground wires going to the headlights, because ground wires, they go bad and you get bright dim. They don't take that much power, and if the end is corroded, either on the headlight assembly or where it bolts onto generally they bolt onto the frame of the car, because that's all negative electricity, check that first. Often it's a bad ground makes that go. It's so easy to check the battery and alternator. You should do it every once in a while anyways, because let's say you got a weak alternator, you're going on a trip, brakes on the trip, you're SOL then, right? So you might as well do it now instead of later if it does have a weak alternator, and they're so easy to test. Get that tested first. Bing Bing 611 says, I found an '08 Ford SEL V6 Fusion. Garage kept with 36,000 miles for $6,500. Okay, now it is 14 years old, but those Fusions were pretty well-built cars. Back in the day, Volvo and Ford had a deal going. It was the fusion of their technology. So those Fusions had nice Volvo suspension systems and stuff, but they had the Ford engines, and they weren't bad cars at all. And if that's the real mileage, they can absolutely prove it. You want absolute proof, not just, well, that's what it says. It can be fake. But if they have proof that that's the real mileage, go ahead. It could be a fine car for driving around in. Just realize, because of its age, you want a mechanic to check it out to see what the rubber is like, because there's a lot of rubber with that old. May need replacing. It can get expensive. Rear main seal of an engine. It's like $15, but you got to pull the transmission off to get to the back of the engine. It's going to cost a lot to fix. I'll have him look at that when he checks it out. Andre Gomes says, Scotty, have you ever been to Portugal? No, I haven't. I've only been to England. I wanted to buy a Celica, but here in Portugal, 1 gallon of gas is like $10. I'm a big fan. Haven't missed a video in 2 years. Well, thanks. Boy, I feel sorry for you guys. $10 a gallon for gasoline. Shoot, no wonder you're driving diesels and stuff like that there. That is just insane. I'm assuming it's taxes. Worldwide, the price of oil doesn't change all that much. It's because of the taxation that they had. Like the English had a ton of tax. The Canadians had a ton of tax. They're buying the oil at the same price. It's just that they're being taxed. And I guess they're taxing you guys there. I hope we don't get that bad over here that they start taxing. Powers that be in the United States today, they're always trying to, get more money for the government and tax us more and then do nothing with it. So, geez, I hope we don't end up like Portugal has. Well, it says, what kind of socket set is that behind you? There it is. I actually bought it at an AutoZone in Corpus Christi. I was driving a car and I didn't have any tools, and the starter went bad on it. It was an old Camry, and so I had to get a set, and of course I got my own sets at home, so I don't care, and I thought, hey, it'd be great to sit on the shelf. It's a great set. I mean, I only ever used it once. You can see how clean it is. My tools are never that clean. I only ever had to use it once. It makes a good display, but it's an excellent socket set. I just have so many other ones, and hey, it looks better clean than dirty, so I put the clean one up here, the one that I only ever had to use once. Veriavante says, Scotty, should I repair the piston rings of my '07 Sonic with 175,000 miles that burns oil? Should I just add oil? Just add oil. What the heck? Oil's cheap. To rebuild that engine is expensive. And I never advise just doing piston rings. You got to take the whole engine apart to get to the piston rings. You might as well do a head job, valve job, pistons, bearings. You might as well change it all. And that costs so much money, you're better off putting a used engine in. As long as it runs good. My grandson's got a Camry with the same engine, burns a lot of oil. He just adds oil, it still runs like a clock. You might have to change the spark plugs a little more often, but what the heck? They still run. Just make sure you keep adding oil and don't make it go empty and then blow the engine, because they can still last quite some time. And it does cost a fortune to do it correctly. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.